After air loss during Russian insurgency, Putin's friend bombarded Wagner. Russian propagandist Vladimir Solovyov lamented a tragedy for the country's military on what is believed to be one of the worst days when the Russian army suffered aircraft losses since the invasion of Ukraine. The head of the Wagner Group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, said he understood his responsibility for shedding Russian blood during the protests after he agreed to release his men. In a brief attack, soldiers from the Wagner Group captured the Russian military stronghold of Rostov-on-Don within hours before advancing north towards the Russian capital to prepare the country's armed forces for defense. The attack occurred after tensions between Prigozhin and the Russian army created accusations of intervention in Ukraine and allegations that the Russian army attacked the Wagner Group camps. While the war of attrition continues on the border and the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense claims to have shot down 314 Russian planes and 308 helicopters so far, Russian experts are now warning of military aircraft losses within its borders. According to the translation of Anton Gerashenko, one of the advisors to the Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, Russian TV presenter Solovyov, who is widely described as the spokesperson of the Kremlin, said on Saturday, "There has never been anything like this in history. We lost many planes today." What's this? According to the Ukrainian Girls Square News, 3 Russian electronic warfare helicopters, Ka-52 helicopter, Mi-8 helicopter, transport helicopter and Il-22 aircraft were killed in the crisis. Pro-Russian blogger Kirill Fedorov shared a photo on Telegram Ka. Steaming behind him, the wreckage of the Mi-52 helicopter was lost. Confirmed that the helicopter was shot down in the Voronezh region. This area is the headquarters of the Wagner Group. Former Soviet commander Viktor Alexins confirmed that the Il-22 was shot down. It is also estimated that between 17 and 22 people died in the 5 helicopters that crashed. The video on social media also showed that Visegrad 24 was identified as an 26 transport aircraft shot down in Voronezh. Video footage also shows that 2 Russian planes were shot down, allegedly by members of the Wagner Group. Newsweek was unable to verify the authenticity of the video. The prospect of an army of about 25,000 arriving in Moscow alarmed the Russian opposition and led some Western commentators to see signs that President Vladimir Putin's control of power was weak. If you have an army that can go miles almost as far as Moscow, what is it? Solovyov said. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Saturday fueled fears of civil war after military anger. Yevgeny Prigozhin took control of key areas in the country's south. Prigozhin, who has long reprimanded Russia's top leadership for handling the war in Ukraine, captured the strategic metropolis of Rostov-on-Don, an important command center for the Kremlin war in Ukraine, about 1,000 kilometers south of Moscow. The Wagner Group mercenaries also seem to have set up a fort near Voronezh, about 500 kilometers from the city. Putin denounced the revolt as treason, and Chechen warlord Ramzan Kadyrov said his fighters were sent to Wagner, raising the possibility of an imminent civil war in Russia. The UK Ministry of Defence described Prigozhin's attack as the most important challenge to the Russian state in recent years. The march of thousands of Russian Wagner mercenaries to Moscow ended in a showdown on Saturday, as critics said Russian President Vladimir Putin's jacket was in poor condition, rendering his image indomitable. Wagner's director, Yevgeny Prigozhin, also known as Putin's butcher, was reported to have traveled less than 120 miles from Moscow and agreed to go into exile in Belarus, according to President Alexander Lukashenko. Garry Kasparov, a fierce opponent of the Putin regime, tweeted to his more than 1 million followers, "The mafia is the mafia. Whatever was decided today, blood was spilled." The thought of doubt disappeared. He too tasted the soldiers' bitter fruit. True fear. Moscow is under threat. Episode. 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 A U.S. defense attorney told Fox Digital News that Putin is seen as inferior in the West after Wagner's power was threatened. But Kovler, who specializes in Putin and Russia, said, "Putin is generally considered powerful by many Russians in Russia because he saved the country by expelling it from the Wagner traitors, who betrayed the president and the country." Kovler added the truth. Putin is neither strong nor weak. He holds the power as before, strong. He took several steps to retain power. He said Putin was working against terrorism and was strengthening Russia's security system. It is a kind of law, a law that allows various measures and temporary restrictions. Putin's anxieties of extinction led to other measures being taken in Russia to avoid conflict. The National Guard subforce has 340,000 soldiers whose task is to monitor and combat the main signs of the attack. He also established the National Defense Center, a military structure where internal and external threats are monitored 24/7. In an interview on Fox and Friends Weekend, Ukrainian-born Representative our India Technology Minister Victoria Spartz commented on Kasparov's criticism that Russia is a country run by criminals. Spatz said the friction between Prigozhin and the Russian defense lawyer bloc has already been played out. Therefore, Putin is worried that these people, Wagner, will betray him. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thinks Vladimir Putin is fearing the attack in Russia. 45-year-old Yevgeny Prigozhin and his Wagnerian mercenary group told Telegram, after Russian President Vladimir Putin accused him of treason. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken told ABC's This Week program that the fact that you're under attack from the inside, as Putin has been for the past few days, can also lead to a deeply asked message. But we've seen it, I think about it, a lot of this violence. It's different because it's the opposite of everything Putin was trying to achieve. Russia has a weak economy and a weak army. World status declined. The US-based Institute for War Studies published tweets examining Russia's intransigence, noting, "The Kremlin now faces an equally precarious balance." The deal Lukashenko negotiated was a short-term solution, not a long-term solution, and Prigozhin's attack exposed a major weakness in the Kremlin and the Russian Ministry of Defense. Instability will be declared in Russia. Moscow-born Alex Grinberg, a foreign policy expert at the Jerusalem Institute for Security and Strategic Studies, told Fox News Digital, "No one knows what will happen tomorrow or the next day. This is not a betrayal, it is an exit. Russia is ruled by the mafia."